Dictators who rule with an iron fist, sentient AI that reigns over humanity, murderous supervillains, literal monsters who prey on children's terror. Even they need friends, or more specifically, sidekicks.
Hey, Hop.
Go away.
That's fine. Then I won't tell you my idea.
To sidekick off this list, we have the characters who qualify as full-on good guys and only help the bad guys indirectly or unwittingly. These are the innocent assets. First and foremost, the gold medal of good goes to a straight-up hero, the captain from WALL-E. While he himself and the audience would initially believe that Otto was the sidekick in this situation, it's clear in retrospect that everything about the Axiom was designed to make Captain McCree believe that he had control over the ship. When WALL-E brings a plant on board, the captain is immediately ecstatic that humanity can return home.
We can go back home for the first time!
Until Otto attempts to stop him, resulting in a scuffle that was basically the equivalent of a baby fighting a sentient claw machine. Thankfully, with help from some rogue robots, the captain managed to shut down Otto and lead humanity back home, giving the species and its planet hope for another chance at life. Against all odds, he stepped up when the world needed a captain, leaving a profound sense of hope for the future of these characters. Someone told him he needs to water that plant, right? The silver medal of good goes to Jerry from Toy Story 2. Yeah, I know he's not exactly the most traditional henchman, but there are surprisingly few true villain sidekicks in Pixar's lineup. We really had to split hairs here. You might remember this guy as the elderly gentleman who enjoys a good game of chess with himself in the park, but in Toy Story 2, he's revealed to have a pretty sweet gig as a professional antique cleaner, restoring the worn-out Woody to his old mint-condition self.
Is the specimen ready for cleaning?
Not only was he kind enough to come fix Woody on such short notice, but according to the film directors, he didn't even charge Al because of how much he enjoyed working on such a rare toy. Considering how broke Al was at the end of the movie, I'm sure he appreciated that. On a very similar note, rounding out this section is the health inspector from Ratatouille. Since this movie is about a rat who wants to cook in a fancy restaurant, it's natural that an innocent, unsuspecting health inspector would be perceived as an antagonist. It's a shame, really. This guy is a perfectly nice man just trying to do his job. He isn't boastful or greedy, nor even some over-the-top extermination fanatic like Dubois from Madagascar 3. He's literally just doing his job by inspecting a rat infestation, and thanks to his car breaking down out of nowhere, he gets rewarded for his hard work by being kidnapped and held hostage by a horde of rats. I'm not saying it would be a good thing, but if anyone has the right to become an overly enthusiastic exterminator, it's this guy. But moving on from the characters who didn't really need redemptions, these are the ones who kinda did, and thankfully got them. They are the redeemed henchmen. From the voice of Bing Bong from Inside Out, and Al Tuttle from American Dad, two characters who are equally beloved, obviously. Next is Malt from A Bug's Life. Fittingly named due to his constantly shedding skin, Hopper's younger brother is talkative, friendly, and a little dumb. He earns one of our more affectionate Darwin Center medals because this guy's clumsiness is the one thing that lightens the creepy mood that Kevin Spacey, Hopper creates in whatever scene he's in.
The grasshoppers eat the food.
And the birds eat the grasshoppers.
As a result of his more annoying, to Hopper, not me, tendencies, he's kept alive solely due to his brother's promise to their dying mother not to kill him. That's such a touching story. But honestly, how could you even imagine killing this guy? Despite being one of the grasshoppers, Malt isn't anywhere near evil. He doesn't do anything bad beyond just spooking the ants here and there, and even tries at one point to convince Hopper to not go back to the ants. He's also the only one who doesn't completely abandon Hopper during the ants' counterattack, hiding in the bushes instead of just running away. That's especially noble considering how much Hopper mistreats him. He totally earned that fresh start with the circus. No shutting up needed. No doubt jealous of the previous four. Next up is Inside Out 2's Envy. I guess you could argue that all of the new emotions are sidekicks to anxiety, but we're gonna give Envy the spotlight here since she's the one who's usually tagging along for all of Anxiety's schemes.
It's a better Riley. A Riley who won't be alone next year.
Not to mention having the fewest reservations of the bunch about going through with them. Being the literal embodiment of jealousy, Envy wants basically everything she sees. Whether it's someone else's hair, clothes, popularity, or anything else, Envy is one of the most dangerous aspects of impulsive teenage life. Still, she isn't trying to outright sabotage Riley's entire life, and ironically seems to have a lot more impulse control than Anxiety. Still, I feel like she does deserve the Envy Sinner medal. No particular reason, though. Next up is a dual entry, Chicho and Guido from Luka. Why these two are even friends with a complete loser like Ercole is anyone's guess. Was it really poor self-esteem? Was it pity because they noticed that literally everyone else hates him? In any case, they fully understand why everyone else hates him now. At the end of the movie, they're finally fed up with Ercole's constant harassment and betray him by shoving him into a fountain, humiliating him, and ruining his precious wool sweater. I guess that does count as a redemption, but it doesn't change the fact that they were willing to cheat at competitions and harass others for the sake of Ercole, who clearly didn't hold much power over them if he was betrayed that easily.
Be useful for once in your pathetic lives.
Still, I can't say they did anything close to the worst we've seen from a Pixar villain. They are just kids, after all. Following up those two, we have Ken, the first of several Lotso Huggin' Bears' minions we'll be talking about today. Ken is not just Ken, he's also a reformed political criminal in Sunnyside Daycare. As one of Lotso's most trusted allies, he has no problem helping imprison and even torture toys deemed as problems to his plans. Although he does get a taste of his own medicine later on. Apparently, Ken is something of a masochist though, because being indirectly tortured by Barbie didn't deter his feelings for her, and falling for her is what ultimately redeemed him.
But when I look at you, I feel like we were
Made for each other?
When Lotso was tossing the other toys in the trash, Ken begs him to spare Barbie, which ultimately leads to Ken himself being dumped, literally this time, alongside her. In the end, he became leader of Sunnyside alongside Barbie, showing that he wasn't a bad guy at heart. We'd put him higher, but I mean, the guy only redeemed himself because of his love for Barbie. Love does bring out the best in people, but that being his whole redemption arc motivation earns him the Lust Center medal. From a henchman to a hench baby, next we have Big Baby. As the muscle of Lotso's operation, Big Baby is, well, he's a big baby. A really big baby, big enough to intimidate and arrest any toys Lotso tells him to. He does seem to have the mind of a baby despite being a toy, which plays into his being psychologically manipulated by Lotso, who tricked him into believing he never had a mama who loved him.
She never loved you. Don't be such a baby.
Thankfully, when Lotso throws his little temper tantrum about how toys are just trash waiting to be thrown out, Big Baby is nice enough to speed up the process for Lotso. Seeing how excited his old friend is, he takes the initiative to throw him in the dump truck where he belongs. What a nice baby he is. Really though, I hope he's doing okay. Closing out this category is Mirage from The Incredibles. As the secondary villain of the film, Mirage was Syndrome's right-hand lady and girlfriend. How Syndrome managed to pull a girl like Mirage is beyond us, but good for him, I guess. It's a shame he had to absolutely fumble her by letting Mr. Incredible hold her life as ransom and doing absolutely nothing to help her, losing her affection and loyalty in the process.
Next time you gamble, bet your own life.
Fortunately, Mirage does ultimately come around by helping the Pars defeat Syndrome, showcasing a clear change of heart after being scorned by her lover. But ignoring the fact that she could have done way better, you have to wonder how far she would have gone if Syndrome hadn't betrayed her. I mean, Mirage helped a serial killer kill a lot of supers after all. The only thing keeping her in our fully redeemed category is the fact that initially she was intended to appear in the second movie as an ally to the heroes, but this was scrapped due to the tragic death of her voice actress. With that knowledge, we at least know she was meant to become a good guy girl after the first movie. That's enough for us to keep her out of the lower end of this list. These are the sidekicks who exhibit some unsavory behavior, but who aren't all bad. They're just kinda bad. The Steward bots from WALL-E are the first ones in this category. Being the secondary antagonists of the movie behind Otto, the Stewards are an interesting bunch to rank. On one hand, they're helping to ultimately destroy the human race by keeping them on board the Axiom, chasing down WALL-E and Eva for the crime of finding life on Earth and thereby proving that rehabilitation of the planet is possible. On the other hand, they are just robots. And not the cutesy personality-having robots like WALL-E and Eva either. These robots are quite literally just following orders, which keeps them from falling any lower. Still, when your whole character is being a robotic security guard, it's hard to justify placing you anywhere but here. The next henchmen may be living and breathing, but Muntz's dogs are even more ruthless than the Stewards. As Charles Muntz's loyal pets, they work tirelessly to help him track down the ever-elusive Kevin, sometimes even referred to as a snipe in less intellectual spheres. They're more than willing to attack people and animals alike in their pursuit, whether they're elderly like Carl or straight up children like Russell. In their defense, they are just dogs obeying their master, so we can't exactly call them evil.
Ray Leader, take down the house.
They just aren't the traditional good boys we've come to expect. It's rare for the term bad dog to even apply, but Scutt from Toy Story is a rare exception. You might remember him as Sid's dog and the holder of the coveted ugliest CGI dog award for 29 years running.
What? It's just an ordinary CGI dog. Oh my goodness! Pixar!
Now, it might seem like we're just judging a book by its absolutely horrifying cover, but that's not entirely the case. Scutt is just, well, he's definitely Sid's dog. If something catches his terrifying eyes, you can bet it's probably because he wants to ruthlessly rip it apart. And he's more than willing to knock down children who stand in between him and his targets. Even after Sid was traumatized by the fact that his toys were sentient, Scutt only cared to try and hunt them down to rip them apart. And since he does actually see the toys moving, that's a lot worse than Sid just tinkering with them, not knowing the truth. In conclusion, keep Scutt at least 50 feet away from me at all times. Thank you. Just outside of the infamous podium are the Bensons from Toy Story 4. These sentient ventriloquist puppets, I won't use the D word, I know they don't like that, are the loyal servants of Gabby, basically following her orders with little to no hesitation. Considering how self-serving Gabby is, that's already a little bit questionable in a moral sense. Then there's the fact that she's Okay, I'm gonna say this every time she comes up. She is literally attempting to strong-arm a man into giving away one of his organs.
I just want to talk.
Yeah, with my voice box.
Helping someone do that is a level of messed up that loyalty can only do so much to redeem you from. Still, at least they aren't trying to summon monsters from a book that Jack Black wrote, so that's good, right? But with that, we've reached our bottom three. These are the pure evil henchmen. The bronze medal of evil goes to the monkey from Toy Story 3. I'll give him this. He's definitely a hard worker. Acting as Lotso's main security guard, the monkey sees everything happening around Sunnyside, and as soon as those stalker-coated eyes of his see something suspicious, he'll screech at the top of his cymbal-banging lungs to warn the others. If you end up in close proximity to him, that's even worse. I mean, just look how he attacks Woody. I get self-defense, but this monkey literally jumped straight to bash Woody's skull from both sides. He's one of the most inexplicably terrifying characters in Pixar history, to the point where I wouldn't even be surprised if what he did wasn't even for Lotso. Taking the silver medal of evil is Randall from Monsters, Inc. Okay, I'll admit, crowning him as our most evil Pixar villain might have been a little out of pocket, but that aside, there's no denying that Randall is one of the most unsavory characters in Pixar history, being one of the few villains to actually outdo his boss in sheer malice. When Waternoose wanted to keep his company afloat, he enlisted the help of the ruthless Randall, who had invented a machine called the Scream Extractor, which he used to torture human children and monsters alike for their screams. Randall takes a sadistic pleasure in terrorizing others, making him one of the most twisted Pixar villains by default. Seriously, you know you're bad when even the main villain is visibly unsettled by you. It's hard to think of a henchman worse than Randall, but I do think there's one character who fits the bill. Though he's far from a fan favorite, today's gold medal of evil goes to Professor Z from Cars 2. Zundap was marketed as the main villain of Cars 2, and to be fair, he does have a way more spy movie villain-esque design. His personality definitely warrants that too. Zundap is the right-hand vehicle to Miles' Axelrod, helping him extract one of the most needlessly convoluted plans in Pixar history. To maintain the oil monopoly, they create an explosive alternative fuel called All in All, using the obvious tragedies that ensue to sway public opinion back to favoring gasoline.
After today, everyone will race back to gasoline.
Axelrod's plan was simply to get rich and powerful by any means, and Professor Z was more than happy to do all the dirty work. He kills multiple cars on screen, which is this universe's equivalent to murder, naturally, and was glad to knowingly assassinate countless racers, committing acts of domestic terrorism and straight-up murder left and right. Oh, but the cherry on top of all of that is his motivation. Every villain needs a motive, right? Well, Professor Z does not lack in that regard. His reason for the numerous acts of terrorism he commits is, wait for it, he's not popular. Yeah, that's right. This guy committed mass murder, terrorism, and global conspiracy, all for the sake of being made fun of. I get it, dude. Some kid called you lame in 3rd grade, and that stuck with you. You know what else is gonna stick with you, though? The multitude of life sentences you've undeniably earned with those crimes.